Let's get into it. So in 2016, in July, I was miserable. I'd gained like 60 pounds. I weighed 222 pounds. I had plantar fasciitis going on for 5 years. Every morning, getting up, getting out of bed, I could hardly walk. I had to limp to walk it off. And if I did go outside and work um, in the homestead, I had to limp. And then once the heel, bottom of the foot, would stretch, whatever, it would feel okay. But then as soon as I sat for a few minutes, it would tighten up and start hurting again. So I was on medications. I was on 6 different medications for one for anti-inflammatory. Then that anti-inflammatory would cause another issue, and then it'd give me a prescription for that, and that prescription, and then and so on. I was on 6 prescriptions. I was also drinking beer every day, running weed eaters, chainsaws, running equipment, moving land. That, as I said, I told everyone to plan accordingly. So that's what I was doing. But I was absolutely hurting all over. My body hurt, my joints, my aches and pains were killer. I'd been going to a foot doctor for 2 years, getting shots in the foot, and there was just no relief. And when you keep listening to my testimonies, you'll understand that I have an issue, or I have something in me that turns off computers. Like right now, I have to send back 3 of my computers to the job that I once owned, because that's how many I accumulated just in 2 years. They just stopped working. And so chainsaws don't work, weed eaters don't work, batteries drain out of vehicles, out of tractors, bobcats. I have to jump stuff off all the time. So on this particular day, I'm down in front of my barn running the weed eater, and I stop it, or it runs out of fuel. I fill it up, and then start cranking and cranking and cranking and cranking. Now you have to understand how miserable I am. I'm talking 5 years of plantar fasciitis, 5 years of hurting, now overweight, just miserable. And I always found myself praying to God, praying to Yahweh, who I know now his name. So I never thought I left him. But I did. And as we always do, we walk away and not even realizing it. So what happens? On a long trajectory in our walk, we become of this world, and we inch off, and inch off from where we started. So for 22 years of marriage, being a dad and everything, I was, if you looked at me from the outside, I was maybe the perfect dad. I coached baseball, basketball, we went on trips, we did everything, but I was in my kids' lives. So once they started graduating, getting older, and building this homestead after 2016, I knew what I needed to do. But prior to that, anyway, there's other messages prior to that. But anyway, we'll get into those. So now then, starting in 2009, 2010, I'm inching away from who I was. I'm out doing secondhand ways of making money. I'm flipping cars. I'm hanging out later. I'm drinking with clients. I'm eating with clients. I'm working the homestead. I'm not here physically, mentally. I'm not here, and my body's taking the toll. And plus, along with everything else that's going on, spiritually speaking. So at this point, I'm eating more than I've ever eaten in my life during the day. I'm drinking more than I've ever drank in my life, and then, especially for when I was 22 years of doing none of this. Then compound the computer issues, and then it was just a burden. It was a huge burden. And so on this particular day, the weed eater wouldn't start. So I took it and I threw it. And if anybody knows me knows I am the most patient person on the planet until it comes to these equipment. Because after years of dealing with buying brand new chainsaws, brand new weed eaters. I went through 4 lawnmowers in a decade. I mean, they just quit running and they won't run, batteries, the whole thing. I threw this weed eater. And so now I'm on my knees. And I literally, at that moment, praying to God, who I knew him as God then. He has a name. His name is Yahweh. I told him, I'm giving it all up. I said, you can take everything. Take me, take this body, take this farm, take my livelihood, take everything. I am so done. And I sit there, and I'm actually pounding the ground with my fist in the ground. Nothing happened. Nothing happened. I get myself up. I hobble up the hill, up to my house, left the chainsaw. It lay there for... Why do I keep saying chainsaw? Because I have so many issues with chainsaws as well. I've got 2 that's broken right now. The weed eater. I walked up the hill, come to the house, took off his shoes, boots, showered, and just sat in a chair. Nothing happened. A day went by, 2 days went by, 3 days went by. Nothing happened. About 2 weeks later, now this is in July, it's the middle of the summer, and to let you know who I was on the radio a lot, call-in shows for Tennessee sports. My nickname was Manvol. I made it up. All man, all vol, which I was, now that I know what I'm getting ready to tell you. So I'm getting ready to go into one of the hardware stores, Lowe's or Home Depot. It was Home Depot. It was orange, so I was going to there. On the way in, there was a guy coming out that I tailgate with, or that would come to our tailgates, and we had a tailgate. It wasn't just a few of us. It was a full-on event. I'm talking like 300, 400, 500 people, everyone drinking, cooking. Back in the day, I made the best hot wings. I still do, but I would make hundreds and up to some points 1,000 wings or more in a weekend. Different gourmet wings and ingredients that my wife and I created. So I'm going into this store, and he's like 30 feet away from me, and he sees me, and he yells out, "Manvol!" And I'm walking up, I don't know him, but we've hung out enough that we know each other from hanging out at this tailgate. I'm decked in orange. Everywhere I went, I love that orange color. The volunteers, I love even the thought of that, because I'm telling you, growing up, I was helping everyone. I had an old soul, if you will, taking care of people, injustices. And once you find out who I am, you'll understand that from 2008, 9, 10, up to this point in 2016, just got off course because of all of this, the sports, being known, notoriety, being on the radio, and flipping cars as a second gig, and just so on and so forth. And playing men's softball at a high level in tournaments around East Tennessee. And so I played sports growing up. I loved baseball, loved watching the Cincinnati Reds back in the 70s, and then cable came in the 80s, and so I became a Braves fan, watching almost every game with my grandmother. I mean, up until 17, you want to find me, I was with her watching sports. So anyway, he says, "Man, every time I see you, you look like you're coming or going from a UT sporting event." Now remember, we're walking toward each other and we're getting ready to shake hands. And just before we're shaking hands, we're within 5 feet of each other. At that moment, at that time, the spirit, the voice that I want to tell you is there, that is real, that is alive, who corrects our behavior, started his work on me right there. the words, the message in my head came loud and clear. Is that who you want to be? And it clicked. Everything clicked. And that's all it takes. One sentence. Is that who you want to be? Because at the time, I thought that is what I wanted. I thought that was who I wanted to be. But that's who I was ending up being. And if I'd have continued on that path, probably would have had I'd have a disastrous physical health if I'd have kept going that way. So as we're shaking hands and he's talking, saying something, all I could think about was, one, how did he not hear that? Because it's that prominent. It's not my voice. That is who I wanted to be. I want to be known for being on the radio as Man Vol, which is short for Man Volunteers. Later is what I created that to be. So what did I do? I went straight home, packed up everything that I own that's UT, and sold it, gave it away, clothes. I made the comment on Facebook a lot that I had up to 69 pieces of clothing that was Tennessee Volunteers related. Orange and white. There's no black in them. There's no black trim in them because that was their colors, and I'm a stickler to detail. And I love that color orange. Even today, it's sad that there's times I can't really wear it because I think that orange is a original. It's a gorgeous color, and I'm surprised that the Tennessee fans are trying to wipe out their history by adding different colors and schemes and all that stuff. It doesn't really make any sense. But anyway, from that day forward, from that July meeting, 2 weeks after, I told the Lord, I give it all up. You tell me what you want me to do. You tell me where to be, where to go, and whatever, and I'll do it. Because in my past, as a kid growing up, I would have spiritual stuff like this happen. And I couldn't understand it. And I truly wouldn't understand it till 2.5 years later. In 2018. And if you watch my other video of the first one I did about the testimony with Peter Strzok and Jim Jordan, you'll understand how this works. I don't just think up stuff and make it happen or want it to happen or wish it happened. When I was a kid, to give you an example, usually how this works is I wake up in the morning and I have a thought, I have a message, and I go investigate it, I go look it up. And it's happened. It's real. It will happen within a few minutes. I tried because I loved, again, sports. I loved playing football. I loved watching the NFL, Major League Baseball. I loved that stuff as a kid, even up through teenage years and adult. But in my teenage years, I was able to say stuff and it would come true from what the message. It wasn't me, the message I was receiving. I thought I could pick football games. So I would get the list of games on Sunday, and I'd try to pick who's going to win by me just thinking and whatever. I wasn't any better than anyone else because it doesn't work that way. So all my UT gear, 63 days, I could go without wearing the same UT gear over and over. I could start on day one, wear a shirt, wear a t-shirt, a long sleeve, whatever, and that doesn't count underwear and socks. I could go further. I mean, this is what it was. My downstairs at our old house, it was a UT football Hall of Fame, if you will. The carpet was green. I had orange and white rugs. Each end of the house of the room, and it was a big room. It was bigger than our first house as far as square footage, is how big this room was downstairs. And it had checkerboard end zones, the whole thing. Gone. It was just gone out of my life because I knew that was the first problem. The sports and everything, being distracted on Sundays or not congregating with people. So my foot was still hurting, still aching, and I had doctor's appointments coming up about getting another round of shots and actually eventually having surgery for plantar fasciitis. I went back to the doctor, so this was in July when all this happened. So it's in July to October. I'm cleaning up. I'm not eating like I was. Wasn't drinking at all. Because I was never addicted to food or alcohol or anything. I'm just in it. I can quit anything like at the drop of a hat. Come October, I'm still limping, but I've lost like 25 pounds. I ended up losing 62 pounds in like 3 months, 4 months. Going back to my normal eating habit, which is 1 to 2 meals a day at the most, and not indulging in all the cakes and the sugar and all this type of stuff, which later on in 2000, where I'm getting ready to tell you I'm heading, is how I discovered and learned things that most people are hearing now, but a decade ago. You have to remember, this is 10 years ago. I didn't hear anyone talking about what we're talking about now. And I spent the last, prior to COVID, telling any and everyone I could meet about what I'm going to tell you. So, I'm still limping, my foot's still hurting, it's still killing me. I go to the doctor one more time, and they schedule me to have plantar fasciitis surgery. And I know now, and at the time I didn't know it. It took another 6-8 months of 2 more messages for me to understand it clearly, that the problem was, and this is how he works, and if you read the Bible, if you know these stories, if he loves you, he will make you miserable until you bend, until you break and change your ways, because it's a spiritual thing. I wasn't walking with him anymore. I'd spent 22 years of being married, of being just trying my best to be the best dad, father, husband I could be. At this point, I was over here doing what I wanted. I was no longer being a leader in our household. I thought I was, and that's my point. You're not being a leader if you're going off the path and doing things like this. So they scheduled me for plantar fasciitis. And I said, will you give me one more shot in my foot? Because when they did give me a shot, it would feel good for a couple weeks, and then it would come back. And the doctor, he was like, and he was an older gentleman, he's a funny guy, and he was like, he said, well, we've been doing this for 2 years, and it hasn't hurt, or hasn't helped. You're still hurting. I said, I know, but I got a feeling. I said, give me a shot one more time, and we'll schedule it for February, in which we did, and he gave me another shot. During that time, again, I no longer was eating and drinking, so I was losing weight, or eating and drinking like I was, and so I was losing weight. I got another message. The most distinct one if the other one was distinct, this was even grander than that. The message was, if you want to come to me and find me, look at my creations. And I knew what that meant. So when I tell people my testimony, I didn't just pick up the Bible and start reading it and go through it. That wasn't the plan. The plan was for me to understand botany, ecology, the study of rocks, the study of trees, leaves, the stars, science, DNA, human cells, all of this type of stuff. So that's what I did for 2 years. I listened to speeches. I read articles. I was on internet searching up stuff that, like I said, I would wake up in the morning, have a message, and I'd start studying that and would dig into it, and then it would connect to this, and then it would connect to how the trees are made, and then all of this kept coming back to, we have a creator. We absolutely have a creator. During that time, and to go back in history a little bit, I am a world history nut, if you will. I loved world history. I loved American history, how American governments worked, how governments around the world work, past governments, Rome and Rome and how Rome crashed, and got all into all of this stuff. This was a decade ago, and I know eventually somewhere in 2022, 23, it became popular. Does your husband think about Rome? Well, I'm doing this 20 years ago, 30 years ago. When I took American government in high school, I had a teacher named Mr. Shoemaker. Peace out to you, Mr. Shoemaker. Thank you. He was a wonderful teacher. But I always had a yearning and earning to learn history. I love the Civil War and why we were actually split up. And it's not all about the slaveries and all this type of stuff. There was other stuff going on, and that was the thing that broke the camel's back, if you will, that got us into this war. So, with all that being said, by the time that surgery came around, I didn't need it. My foot's healed. It's been healed now for 8 years. I had this miserable pain in my foot for 5 years at least, and going on 6, 2009 to 2016. Somewhere in that time frame in 2009. Every day of my life, when I started cleaning up my act, and I threw all those prescriptions away, that was the other thing. Stopped taking them, because it was the food that was killing me. It was the alcohol that was killing me. All of this stuff combined was why I was hurting. All the excess sugar that's in all the food that we eat, and the alcohol turns to sugar. And then also, I love chocolate, which I still partake, but in small amounts. Didn't need it. So I didn't study the Bible right off the bat. I didn't pop into it, because that wasn't the plan. And to end it with this, because this will be a video and this will continue on, I got 2 things to say. One, about this is the only item that I kept that has anything to do with UT Sports on it, and it's not what you think it is. It has everything to do with that title. Vols, bump off, Irish. Volunteers, replace Catholicism. And if you know history and you know current events, you'll understand that. If not, we'll get into it. So, what I have to tell you, I skipped over. I wanted to end with that. One morning, and I'm telling you, this is how this works, and this sounds crazy. And during this time, I'm thinking, is this real? Is this really happening? Is this the path? Is this what's happening? So now, all those years of all the little voices and the messages and things happening, is this the plan? Have you ever heard the song, The Greatest American Hero? Go listen to the lyrics. I woke up this morning, this particular morning, and this song's in my head. Because it's not that I'm doubting, I'm just like, is this happening? So anyway. The lyrics in the line says, believe it or not, it's just me. And I watched that show as a kid. And this is how sometimes it's interacted. It references stuff. The Spirit just references stuff that I'll understand. So I'm getting ready for work. At the time, I'm leaving here to go to a work meeting. And I'm singing that song in my head. And right before I go and drive off, I look up the lyrics to that thing. And I'm reading the lyrics to that. And the biggest tears of relief and joy that you could possibly ever understand is pouring out of my face. Because the joy that I have had since then
trying to tell everyone my story, and it's not my story, it's his story. These books of the Bibles is Yeshua's and Yahweh's story. They are real. And that's what I've been trying to explain. And it was a great relief and a great burden at the same time, because I see what is coming. I've seen what was coming for a decade. Some of it longer than that. Some of the stuff that I've talked about, I've been talking about since the late 80s and 90s, because of the term history repeating itself. And I'm going to shoot another video about that in a scientific form, because I'm telling you, I went through all the sciences and the DNA and everything in our bodies, which ironically, when COVID-19 came up, I was begging people not to get that shot. You don't need it. Your body doesn't need it. We were perfectly designed. I'll explain that. But this song, believe it or not, it's just me. And I rewrote it. Just tweaked it, I should say. I tweaked it. And it's a gospel song. So with that, I'll end you with how all of this started. And I'll continue my testimony. Thank you.